why don't we start first of all with recruiting? Let me pop up. I got the Rivals recruiting list here. They've got, let's see, 2 4-star players. Are there any of these recruits coming in, whether it's the 4 stars or 3 stars, or whoever they are, who could be an impact or, a contributing player this early this season?
So looking at that list, the one to pay attention to the 4 stars is LaMason Waller. He was an early enrollee, went through spring camp. The wide receiver position at BYU is very stocked and it's deep with talent, but he came in early expecting to make an imprint early on. So I would expect to pay attention to his name. He's a guy that got a lot of skill coming out of Southern California. If he can kind of hone his craft and if the time in the training regimen has paid off, if his body's been transformed, he could be in the mix there. Looking at other names there, the funny thing about this recruiting class, Greg, is a lot of them are mission bound. A lot of guys from BYU will go on missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You don't see them for a full 2, as many as 3 seasons, just depending on when they go on their mission. And the vast majority of these guys on this list were mission bound guys. But 2 other names I will mention that I'm seeing on this list that are going to come in this year. Hunter Clegg is a returned missionary, so he's actually already served his mission time, actually transferred from Utah to BYU, decided to enroll at BYU after his mission. He's going to factor in a defensive end. If he is kind of been able to get his body in shape, he could be a factor at DN. And the other name, Nusi Taumoepeau, right there, defensive end from Saratoga Springs. He actually plays at the high school, which is about 5 minutes from my house. He is an absolute terror off the edge. He has got elite pass rush ability, and he actually had committed to Stanford, never enrolled as far as I'm aware, but then did a renege on that commitment and decided to sign with BYU. And they're excited to have him in this class. He's got a good size already coming out of the high school ranks and could be one of those 3rd down specialists you just bring in to go off the edge when you have an obvious passing down.
So is he from your neck of the woods?
He is, yeah. He went. So I guess the high school that he went to is literally 5 minutes from where I'm sitting right here. So
okay.
It's funny. It's a place called Westlake High School.
Okay, so anytime a BYU fan wants to know about recruits, because like you said, some of them will be gone for a couple of years. Like as you mentioned with Clegg, so they're going to basically anytime their missions are up, they're going to put those players right here and add them to this list, to this upcoming list for that year. Is that how they handle it?
Most of them do. Rivals, I know, does it when it comes to their recruiting, because they will slot them into the recruiting class they actually enroll at. I'll give you an example. So BYU made headlines just earlier this offseason when they got 5-star quarterback Ryder Lyons to commit to the program. Well, he's going on a mission, and most programs are, even though he's a part of the 2026 recruiting class, so this next recruiting class, in all straight up honesty, he's gonna be a member of the 2027 class when all is said and done. So that's the funny thing about it is, yeah, guys may sign in a certain class, but they don't enroll for a full 2 years if they go on a mission.
Did you say a 5-star quarterback?
Yeah. So Ryder Lyons, remember the 2026 class. This is the 2025 class we're looking at. So he will be a factor down the line, but he is going on a mission, so he's going to be out of the mix for at least a year or so.
Oh, is he a local kid?
Actually not. He's from Folsom, California. Folsom's a pretty strong program in Northern California. He does have ties to the university. He's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that's obviously the sponsoring church of the institution, speaking of BYU, and decided it's where he wanted to play his college football and beat out the likes of Oregon, USC, and others to get him to Provo.
Yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. Transfers. Mm-hmm. So taking a look here at our depth chart, at some of the key transfers that could be making an impact on offense. First of all, do you think that these 4 in orange, do you think that they will all potentially be starting material?
Yeah, Tiger Blackmeyer absolutely in the mix there at that X receiver position. I think that he's absolutely got a chance. He had a really, really big season 2 years ago for Stanford, was a All-American freshman type player. I think he's got a big opportunity. Kyle Saforchich there at right guard, absolutely. Andrew Gentry, I think might be the most important offensive line transfer they got, because they hope that he can hold down one of the tackle spots, and he's got a championship pedigree. He has a national championship ring with Michigan before transferring to BYU. BYU. So they hope that he brings that to the program. But the biggest of the four, in my opinion, is the fourth one right there, Carson Ryan at tight end. He had an absolutely dominant spring. I thought he was a really, really good addition at that tight end position. And it's a position group that BYU needs more production from. He expects to have a really big year in his lone season as a Cougar, and BYU hopes he does just that.
Okay, and then on defense, let's see. There's a couple of guys up front as well. Tunia is he the one that really stands out?
Yes, yeah, he is. He actually, BYU took him. He's already a captain. They took him to Big 12 media days, made headlines, obviously, being a standout player for Utah, and then transferring to BYU. That just doesn't happen in this rivalry. I had fans on both sides bickering back and forth on social media, as you might imagine. But he is as good as they believe he can be, and they think he's an NFL type talent. So they expect him to have a big year. I mentioned Kirkland. They're just monitoring his health status going into the season, but if he is full go, he was a very, very good and solid player for Oklahoma State, and they hope that he will have an impact. But I'll also throw in the name Tausili Akana that you mentioned there. You got him as third string at that defensive end spot. He's a little bit skinny. He's a transfer from Texas. He actually played high school football here in the state of Utah, went to Texas, now is transferred back to BYU. If he can put on some weight, maybe gets to 240 pounds, he could be a really, really nice piece at defensive end. It's just all dependent on him gaining that weight, because when he showed up at BYU, I think he's somewhere around 220, 225 pounds, so a little too skinny to really be an impact player right away.
Okay, and anybody else that I did not mention regarding transfers or freshmen who could make an impact?
I think we've got, I think we've covered up pretty much all the guys. Oh, I will mention one other one on the offensive line front. I just saw that as you were scrolling up there. Andrew Williams right there at left tackle. He actually had a really, really strong spring, actually stronger than a lot of people thought. I'm not saying he's going to challenge for starting reps right away, but based on how he performed in spring, he could be a two-deep guy as a true freshman.
Okay, now let's take a look at the players that are coming back. These are the guys that are really going to make this team work offensively. And you look at a kid like LJ Martin at running back, and with the quarterback situation being the way that it is, this could really be a big breakout year for LJ, couldn't it? Because we've seen what he can do, but I mean, we could be at a point where he might be ready for a 1,000-yard season.
That's the hope. He's got to stay healthy, obviously. That was the biggest thing last year. Then SMU game, second game of the year last year, he suffered a high ankle sprain, and it nagged him the entire rest of the season. And he had a pretty good season overall. He had a breakout performance in the bowl game against Colorado because at that point, he was finally fully healthy, having a full month to really recover from that high ankle sprain. But if he is healthy, I really believe he could challenge for 1,000 yards. He was a four-star prospect when BYU signed him out of El Paso a couple of years ago, and really the only thing that's held him back to this point has been his health status. So if he has a healthy season, I absolutely could see him challenging for 1,000 yards.
And then on the receiver unit, you've already mentioned the transfer tight end, but Roberts is back, which is huge. Phillips, I noticed Phillips had some really interesting numbers for only 10 receptions to be at 21.1 per. Yeah. That means that there's something there possibly if he can get the ball a little bit more. And you mentioned Kingston. Yeah, because Kingston's another one that seems to be a nice little downfield threat, or somebody that you get the ball in his hands, anything can happen. Because Marion, I mean, I was actually taken back when I saw that Marion had 2 kickoff return touchdowns and Kingston had 2 punt return touchdowns. Like, come on now. But anyway, I know Marion's gone, but Kingston and Phillips, are they going to end up getting a little bit more production based on the fact that Lassiter's gone?
Yeah. So Chase Roberts obviously will be the number one guy. There's no doubt about that. He's poised for a big year, I think, in his final season as a Cougar. But you mentioned the 2 guys I would have mentioned, JoJo Phillips and Parker Kingston. They're going to step into that void, as you mentioned, that was left by Darius Lassiter leaving the program. And the nice part is they also have got a lot of young players beyond that are going to be able to challenge for time. You listed Tate Nakua, Cody Hagan, Dominique McKenzie. Those are 3 legit speed guys that they are excited to have in this program. program. All of them are young players, were track stars in high school in addition to being standout football players. And the hope is that with the kind of the top three of JoJo Phillips, Chase Roberts, and Parker Kingston, that younger core, they really start to develop and hone their craft, kind of that second unit. And when these guys age out of the program, like Chase Roberts will this year, those guys are ready to step in. But the nice part is they go 3 or 4 deep at every wide receiver position.
You mentioned the offensive line. Do they have a holdover who stands out?
Yeah, Waylon Lapuaho. I think that he is poised to have a monster year this year. He's a left guard. He's played essentially every position other than center at BYU at this point in his career. Played some tackle last year due to some injuries, but his home is at left guard, and he's an absolute mauler at that position. And the other guy I'll mention is kind of a revelation. Last year during spring ball, Bruce Mitchell, who listed center there as the starter, he was a defensive lineman that Jay Hill essentially said, hey, I think you have a better future on the offensive line. He made the transition, and BYU found a home run because he really took to the position quite nicely, backed up Connor Pay early on in the season when the Connor Pay broke his foot. Bruce stepped in and essentially didn't miss a beat. And BYU's excited to have him at that center spot and have some continuity there with his experience that he gained last year. And those two, speaking of Lapuaho and Bruce Mitchell, they're going to be kind of the leaders with the rest of the offensive line a little bit in flux.
Okay. And then on defense, take a look there. Who sticks out on, well, the ones that really stick out on defense, I guess, are obvious if you're a BYU guy, and that is Kelly and Glasgow at linebacker. So what kind of ceiling does either of those players have? Because they've sure looked good at this point. And are we going to see even potentially more out of them this season?
They hope to get more out of them. I think both of them have got NFL futures. The crazy thing is they're in some ways scratching the surface of their potential. A guy like Isaiah Glasgow, I'll just tell you this. I cover high school football here in the state of Utah. 5 years ago, he was a 6'4", 180-pound wide receiver / safety in high school. Now he's 6'5", 245-pound linebacker. What a transformation he has made, and he is only getting better as he continues playing the linebacker spot. BYU's got a strong run of linebackers who've succeeded at the NFL level. Fred Warner, Kyle Van Noy, just to name a couple of guys. And it feels like a guy like Isaiah Glasgow is on that trajectory, just right alongside Jack Kelly. Jack's a little bit shorter, but he's got incredible closing speed. And when he gets off the edge, he is an absolute terror. BYU thinks that these two are going to be absolutely elite. But there's another name you list there at that middle linebacker, the max spot, Sialia Serra. Get to know that name. I think BYU is excited to have him. He is 6'3", 250-pound, just an absolute machine out there in the middle of that defense. And they think that 3 linebacker core right there could elevate BYU to some pretty special things, especially losing a guy like Harrison Taggart to the transfer portal.
And with Batty gone and a few other guys, the pass rush, where's it going to come from?
That's a good question. That may be the one biggest question I've got is which of these guys steps up. You list about 7 guys here on this list. I could probably add 2 or 3 more if I were to go and look at the roster. But yeah, Bodie Schoonover, Viliami Puha, Logan Latui, Ephraim Asiata, Orion Miley Kafusi, Hunter Clegg, who we've already talked about as a freshman transfer coming in here, Tausili Akana. They have to go through training camp, kind of like that quarterback spot, and find the right combination of guys off that edge. I think that BYU's confident that they will find some guys that will emerge. They just need to get them in game-like scenarios and really turn them loose and see who stands out above the rest.
Okay. And what about the secondary? Because I didn't notice any sort of top name guys that were there last year and were gone. It looked like Wall seemed to stick out a little bit. Do they have a secondary that you think is on par with last year? Are they going to be better? How's it looking?
I think it's safety position, I think, will be upgraded from last year just due to the continuity. You mentioned Tanner Wall. I'll give you a little backstory. This is a kid who was a former walk-on with this program as a wide receiver. couple years into his career, just found no traction at the wide receiver position. Former safeties coach Ed Lamb said, hey, why don't you come over and try safety? And all he's done is become a fringe all-conference performer at that spot. And he's got guys, you list guys like Tommy Prasis as well as Falatau Satuala, who are high-level prospects, 3- and 4-star type talents that they've been unable to unseat him so far through their careers. It just shows how good Tanner Wall has been and what a story he is as a former walk-on with this program. But I think the safety position with him and Raider DeMooney are going to be absolutely stellar on that back end. The question mark is at the corner spots. They graduated the 2 starters from last year, so the hope is that 2 guys in Maury Bamba as well as Evan Johnson on the outside, they got a lot of time last year, but they weren't the full-time starters. The hope is with that experience, they'll be able to kind of take that next step and really emerge as the tandem that Gennaro Guilford is their position coach hopes they can be. Jonathan Cabea at that nickelback spot, they expect he's going to have a major impact this year. I think they expect that he's going to take that next step and maybe become the next big star in this defensive secondary. But that doesn't even discount Trey Alexander or Therian Alexander, as you mentioned here. He goes by Trey. I think that kid has got all the potential in the world. He's 6'3", 180 pounds, long, rangy athlete. And this year could kind of be his coming out party if he can unseat one of those other guys at cornerback.
Okay. Might be a perfect opportunity now to go to breakout performers. Yeah. So why don't we start on defense? Give me a couple of guys that you think could be breakout players, come not necessarily from nowhere, but hey, they bide their time and now this is their year.
Keanu Tanavasa has got to be that guy at BYU's defensive line. It is really going to be as good as they think it's going to be. I know that he's an upperclassman, as an all-conference pick at Utah, but I think if BYU expects big things from him, I think he'll absolutely be a breakout player. I already mentioned Siale Acera. I know that Isaiah Glasker and Jack Kelly are the 2 headliners at linebacker, but Siale Acera is going to insert his name into that conversation when it comes to the best linebacker if he stays healthy this year. I think he's got that type of talent. And then in the secondary, I will give a shout out to Jonathan Cabea. The coaches have been raving about his progression so far in the program. He's still a really young guy, I believe a true sophomore. Yeah, true sophomore coming into the season. I think he is going to make himself a household name this year with his performance at nickelback.
All right. And then over on offense, give us a couple here.
Here's the thing. We talked about LJ Martin challenging for 1,000 yards. I think the bigger storyline is Sione Aimoa, who's the backup to him at running back. If they can get a 2-headed monster at running back that they think they can get out of these 2 guys, they can have a formidable running game. So I'll give Sione Aimoa some love because I think he could be a guy who could challenge for 300, 400, 500 yards, even alongside a guy like LJ who could go for 1,000. I think he's that good of a running back, kind of playing the Robin to LJ Superman. I will also give a shout out to Isaiah Jada. You listen there at left tackle. BYU's been excited to have him in this program. They redshirted him last year, even though he was technically a senior. I know that sounds really strange, but he had a redshirt year available. They felt like it would do him some good to redshirt, maybe play in 3 or 4 games, and then hopefully emerge this year as their starting left tackle. They expect that he's going to really emerge, and if he does, he could make BYU 5 for their last 5 in terms of their left tackles being drafted in the NFL draft. To be a pretty incredible run there. And then I will give one other shout out at the wide receiver position. I really do think JoJo Phillips, you mentioned his numbers, 10 catches, 21 and change per reception. I think with an uptick to maybe see 50 or 60 balls thrown his way, you will see those numbers go up in spades.